And welcome to the AEW Revolution review. I'm Adam Wilbourn from WhatCulture, joined by Michael Sidgwick from WhatCulture, here to review everything that happened at the AEW Revolution pay-per-view. But before we get into it, if you're a fan of this sort of thing, make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube, where we do daily wrestling podcasts where we review AEW Dynamite, AEW Collision, Raw, SmackDown, the show formerly known as NXT 2.0, pay-per-views, premium live events. We have interviews, roundtable discussions, and a roundup of the week complete. Eliminating a quiz, of course, on WrestleCulture. As I said, though, joined by Michael Sidgwick to review AEW Revolution. What did you make of the show?
Everyone is going to say the same thing. Hopefully, deeper in the podcast, I will expand on this in more insightful ways. But, I mean, it draws ever more... It just becomes ever more clear what the issue is. Mm-hmm. Everyone has the same take, with, like, the exception of one match on the undercard. That was a mistake. It's cynical. I know why you've done this mistake. If it weren't for the main event, you could call this either a company in red hot form, not red hot business, but red hot form, or the form company, you know? I know the John Cena heel turn and not everything has to be through the lens of the AEW versus WWE war or whatever, but it just felt, there's so many wrestlers doing awesome stuff on this roster. There are so many stories clicking, so many wrestlers getting momentum at the time. The vibe in the buildings is immaculate. There were moments on this pay-per-view that will stay with me forever, you know? And it's just ridiculous. I remember tweeting, right, May 2020 it would have been, after the first Stadium Stampede, AEW is a masterpiece factory. And that's those two things don't belong together. You're not meant to be able to produce works, matches, whatever, that you could consider a masterpiece, match of the year contender at the rate AEW does this. One of those nights where you remember, you know what? Yes, sometimes the TV isn't amazing. Trending in a great direction, but not amazing. But it's a great night to have perspective because this company genuinely, at times, is too good for its own good.
It's, one of those shows where... And I'm not going to do the tired thing of like, oh, we have to wake up early to watch it here in the UK, and oh, the show's long, what have you. I'm not doing that today, right? But it was one of those shows where it started off with MJF Hangman, obviously, and then it just went from there, strength to strength with that run of 3 matches, though. The Toni Storm, Mariah May, Omega Takeshita, and Will Ospreay Fletcher was just jaw-dropping. And then, as I said to you just before we came in here, not good. When after something like that, you're like, oh, God, main event's here. Like that, you just brings it, like you're saying, to such sharp focus of just like everything else is going so well. And you're like, oh, yeah, main event. But we'll get into it in due course. Because, it's one of those things where I saw people saying, like, this is like possibly one of my favorite AEW pay-per-views of all time. And I can see that other than the main event.
Yeah, the main event's the main event, though, isn't it? Yeah, so important. Thing. It wouldn't be my top 5 pay-per-views. It wouldn't be. But, I mean, at its best, thoroughly, like a masterpiece factory.
Well, it started at its best, arguably, not even with MJF Hangman. I'm talking about what happened on 0 Hour.
Bit of inside baseball for the listeners. Wilbourn and I separately watched the pay-per-view at God knows what o'clock this morning. I'd seen a picture of the Rizzler. And I think, Pop, that's really funny. I say to Wilbourn downstairs, I says, have you seen the Rizzler? He went, no. And he went, I'm watching the pre-show before the podcast. And in fact, he did at his desk. When I'm editing an article and doing actual work at my desk, I can just hear him exploding in fits of giggles. And then he just starts to repeat the same thing over and over and over again, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
He loved it.
It was like, I feel bad because I said...
He blatantly enjoyed this way much more than the main card.
No, well, in a different way. I can appreciate good wrestling, but come on. Like the fact I was going, we got Orange Cassidy and Mark Briscoe in there, but that's not what we're watching this for. Big Boom AJ, another great account of himself. The Shield Power Boom wins it for his team, but it's not about him. I want to give a big mention to Big Justice, though, who hits a powerbomb of his own on Mansoor, which was not a lovely moment, genuinely. It's all about the Rizzler, isn't it? Let's be honest. He's the man, really, isn't he?
He's the...
It kept cutting to him. He did this. He's got his thing. You've probably seen it. He goes, shh, like that. He must have hit it about 20 times, and I didn't even watch this thing in its entirety. I was just sort of skimming through it. But any time it cuts to him, shh, all that, right? And there was a bit where, and I told you it was good stuff.
Good, it's all good stuff.
Mansoor stole a double chunk chocolate cookie off of the Rizzler.
Off of? What are you, American? Off of.
Huge heat, followed by Orange Cassidy feeding him the double chunk chocolate cookie, to which Mansoor said, I'm on a diet, which is also funny. But then, yeah, he kept hitting his pose, and I just went full, you are the man, the Rizzler. You are the man.
He loves the Rizzler, this guy. Nicholas, how many times did he say you are the man? You are the man, the Rizzler. You are the man.
Way too many
like
times.
About 6?
Yeah, I mean, that's being generous there. He's at least hit double figures, I think.
Class. He loves the Rizzler, this guy.
Loves him.
Anyway, right, let's get to the...
out loud at his desk about 10 times. Every time the Rizzler did anything.
When he say anything as well, it's just that. Shh. That's all he does. Takes his sunglasses off, shouts, does it again. Right. Main card. Let's get on to it.
Yeah, serious stuff, man.
Because it started with MJF and Hangman Page, and surprise, surprise, what an opener this was.
It had everything.
I did have Maxwell Jacob Friedman eating the canvas.
Oh, my God.
Jesus Christ.
From the entrance to the finish, this was an absolutely awesome opener. It's weird. Like, I wonder if they're going to revisit this and do a lengthy program over the spring and perhaps even into the summer, because this is the most well-built pay-per-view opener I can remember in quite some time. It fully would have justified, given how invested the crowd were in it, how well-received every interaction has been on TV, how well-received it's all been on socials. If this was in that run of, like, 25, 28-minute long matches deeper in the card. I expected it to be in that slot, not the opener.
I think it was the right call to put it here, though, in terms of the way things were escalating.
It was like a statement on it as well. A statement of, you know what? People say we've had a bad couple of years. There's been brawl out. There's been changes in tone and direction. And, the feeling's gone and all the rest of it. We can do MGF, Hangman Page in our pay-per-view opener, and it's a main event in any other company. You know, it's just, they were taking the piss with how studded this lineup was. I thought this match was terrific. I thought this match really set the tone for a proper great night of professional wrestling. So witty at times. It wasn't just the Angel's wings that MGF ate that really sort of made me feel a bit of revulsion, but in the cool, I love pro wrestling and how nasty it can get way. That hammerlock DDT that MJF does is gross. It's one of those underrated, that looks disgusting moves, like the best hidden blades.
Yeah.
Maybe not the best hidden blades, but the hidden blade. It's just a genre of move where you're like, Jesus Christ, I'd never take that in a million years. It looks like, I think Taz, who's always great selling moves, and his history, with his neck, is always oh, that thing does not look good. Looks good, but not, So MJF's done that a few times, and there's never been any issues. He just happens to hit it brilliantly every single time, it would appear. This match was, really witty. And fair play to MJF. Wrestling is a delicate political compromise where if you do the job, you've got to kind of look good yourself, or you can trade those wins. What a creative way he has found of kind of protecting himself in defeat with this idea of he is so pissed off that this crowd has rejected him because his skin is so thin, and ultimately it all goes back to the lore of the character and the rejection sensitivity that he has. He cannot abide and it's, he's a malignant narcissist, sociopath character as well. This idea that he cannot deal with the fact that people do not validate him. And not only was it a good way to say the character, Hangman Page is beaters, and Hangman Page kind of needed a win as well. Particularly now he's babyface. We said it all along. All along, he's losing to like Darby Allin on TV. He's losing to Jay White on pay-per-view. He's a good guy at his core, and that's when he'll start winning again when he realizes that. So we did call that. But MJF's thing of that he's furious that this crowd has turned on him and that it really flares up his rejection sensitivity. Not only was it a good way for him to say, like, I'm protecting my character and all the rest of it, it informed like really actually genuinely witty spots in this match. I howled when Page does that spot where he vaults off the middle turnbuckle and does a lariat to the guy who's standing on the apron. MJF ducks. It's like, see, I'm clever. Why don't you cheer me for being clever?
Yeah.
Sorry, does that a phone call? No, that's fine. And then he just gets lariated in the back of the head. That looked awesome. Yeah. The tombstone reversal sequence onto that standing chair looked disgusting. Made you think, if they revisit this, they genuinely did, I think, only scratch the surface. They've got like a horrific plunder match in them as well. Yeah. Pace of this was perfect for an opener. Breakneck as well. It went about 18 minutes.
Yeah, it flew by.
I thought it went 15. Tell you what, there's so many things because it's like a normalized, just accepted standard where if anything actually dipped below it, you would start to ask questions. And I don't want to ever sound like a mark, like, aren't these guys great? And don't they work hard? And aren't they such great athletes? Like, they're such great athletes and they work really hard. Like, the pace that a lot of these matches went at, it felt like, and it wasn't just this match, Swerve and Ricochet, quite similar in terms of the pace and, like, the match length. It felt like, and the main event did not, it felt like there was a point to prove operationally within AEW from the top down of we're going to show, not tell that we are back. I'm still not there yet. I still need my 6 months of great TV. And I've had about 2 months of it, I think. But my God, this was a great opener.
Yeah. Hangman Page winning, and that's very exciting as well, based on what else happened on this card, which we'll get to in due course.
Yeah.
About where we could be heading to.
Howling at points during this match.
Yeah, always great stuff, these two. What followed was the AEW TBS Championship match. It was Momo Watanabe challenging Mercedes.
Moné.
Simple question here. Did Momo Watanabe kick her square in the face? I had a flashpoint, like that Okada match that you showed me where he's like, don't mind if you kick me, and then the lad kicks him right in the face.
Yeah.
Just when
Mercedes, that was great.
Mercedes won by a submission, but it really felt like she was cranking back on that submission.
I think it was reported by either Dave and or Brian that she has a bruised larynx. Which would make sense from some of the impact here. I was so impressed by this match. I was expecting it. I mean, it's an AEW pay-per-view, mate. I should have realized it's probably going to go closer to 20 minutes than 10.
Yes.
It's just the way of it. I thought this was sequenced really well, actually, as a show. That, or there's just certain wrestlers who are so over and so talented that they can do a slow burn match and it can follow a bloody match and it's fine, whatever. But I think this was they are trying to tell the story of Mercedes Moné being the most important or one of the most important instrumental successes in the history of the women's division. Part of that is they are really emphasizing how long these matches are. That was a big feature of the Statlander series, and this was another long match as well. And they're trying to portray it as the ace figure, even though she's not the AEW Women's World Champion, she's kind of the ace of the division. That's the story that they're going for. And what an unbelievable ace performance, ... Eventually, this was, as I said, like they should have put Watanabe on Dynamite 2 or 3 weeks ago in like a pretty horrific looking squash with some of those like revolting, like awesome, but like revolting kicks that make you wince and get you back up, to let the fans in on the fact that if you're not aware of her, she's an incredibly talented pro wrestler. Without that familiarity, without the, quite frankly, baseline competent promotion, as we said this on the preview, they were going to have an uphill battle. They kind of did. It was weird. because the fans were into it at the start. That sequence that ended up with the powerbomb on the floor, like that Meteora through the ropes and then the flip into the powerbomb, which sounded disgusting. Very great soundscape throughout last night. And like a lot of the stuff sounded awful. By that I mean like wonderful, like intoxicating to a guy like me. You know me, like butter in my ass and a lollipop in my mouth. That's just the kind of guy I am. So I quite like that. But then there was a lull, and I'm thinking, ooh, this is going a bit longer than I thought, and you haven't got the crowd. And then they got the crowd.
Yeah.
That Meteora spot from Watanabe, where she kind of like angled this Meteora, the one on the apron, where her knees just sort of swung. It was like a 619 Meteora all at once. It just looked the tits.
Yeah.
It looked the business. I thought the way that they crafted this, a lull at the end of the first third, notwithstanding, was really, really. I was really, truly impressed by this, to the point where it went from a pretty muted reception, where there weren't too many people who seemed to know who Watanabe was in the building, to getting a dueling chant within the last 3 minutes, which was a scorching back and forth sequence as well. She still needs to bin the Moné maker.
Yep.
Like, come on.
It's just convoluted, isn't it?
It just never looks good when she does it. I can understand the psychology behind the move and why she's picked that specific move, because anything with quite an elaborate setup, you can build the anticipation of doing it.
The one-winged angel strategy, isn't it? Yeah.
Obviously not as good, but it's that one-winged angel strategy, the Rainmaker ripcord, where you can do something, a setup that is reversible, so you can like create dramatic sequences on the back of the setup alone. It's like the opposite of the out of nowhere approach. So I understand why she does it. Just think of something else. It's looked good, I can recall once. And even then, it probably didn't look good. You just were probably in a good mood with a match, because just really getting there as well.
Yeah, I think it speaks volumes that in the majority of her matches recently, I think she won by the Moneymaker in Australia, but wins by submission here. She's won a few matches by submission recently. I think she knows that. I hope it's not long for this world.
Yeah, even as a signature, I don't think it's that great.
No. But Mercedes retains, and then we get to the match between Swerve and Ricochet, which had, numerous things on the line. It's the long-standing rivalry, of course. There's the embassy robe in all this, and Ricochet's done his own little detailing of it. And, of course, the winner of this became the number one contender for the AEW World title. And more of those bumps in this, particularly that one where Swerve goes to dive onto Ricochet on the outside and he turns it into like a Death Valley driver or something.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah. This was verging on excellent. I think I would probably call it very, very, very good as opposed to excellent. I think that I understand the story that we're going for, but by the letter of the law, the Nana stuff, meddling with Ricochet, like a referee should be hoying Nana out. It's really only because he's a baby face, the odd bit of it was just that Death Valley drive. I mean, it looked amazing, but strictly speaking, that he's perforated his eardrum. Apparently, Swerve has. So like, obviously that's not what you want. I don't know whether the idea was dive, catch, a bit of I've got you, register the drama, then do that. Or if the momentum was such that they had no choice, and like Swerve is a unit these days. He's in, main event world title physique, So maybe the idea was to do that, but the momentum was too much. Or maybe they just try to do, what if we can hit this so seamlessly and it would just like
slide into it,
Yeah, but for whatever reason, I mean, it looked, again, I used the words awesome and disgusting, and they are synonyms to me. I mean, you wouldn't want to do it again. You don't want to burst your eardrum in every single match. The vertebraker on the table, your favorite kink as well. When it doesn't break, it's often better because it looks disgusting. A few moments jarring of like execution some of the stuff with Nana didn't strictly make a great deal of sense.
Yeah, I wasn't into the whole like, all right, I'm leaving. I'm back again.
Yeah, it was a bit, I understand that was the story that they're telling on TV and they wanted to, pay it off and Nana's really over and it's nice for Nana to get like a showcase, but I would do less of that in this subsequent Moxley match. One thing though on Ricochet, who continues to be great, here's a weird word to describe Ricochet, right? You know how, like with Fletcher and Ospreay, it's just this gruesome impact and everything's so crisp and sharp. Ricochet, at least until before last night, if I was to say to you, right, Ricochet is a bit floppy as a wrestler, would that make any sense to you at all?
I think
like
so.
When he's sort of rolling through and then he's about to take a move. I know he's just a bit floppy. I don't know if that makes any sense to anyone, but sometimes he can just sort of look a bit floaty and a bit floppy, and it's not too sharp, and looks like he's just sort of flopping about a bit, as opposed to like really engaging in the struggle. He just looked sharp. He looked really, really, really sharp. He's genuinely found himself.
He really has. I would not be surprised. Maybe the TNT titles in his future or something like that. I feel like they're going to...
He's on that short list of, if I'm booking that title picture and I'm not having Omega, I mean, in an ideal world, you would have Kenny Omega take the 3 belts. Clearly he's going to go for the Continental, and then you'd have him for the 3. If they're going to persist with having 2 titles beyond the world, I mean, with the size of the roster, I mean, why not? Ricochet would be on that short list just for how magnificent he's been.
Speaking of the other belts, we got the Continental Championship match next. Kazuchika Okada versus Brody King. Did you, like me, get sort of TV title defense vibes from this?
Yeah. I say on every preview, and in fact every review of an AEW pay-per-view, there is always one match too many. Less is more. I'm going to reveal myself to be a hypocrite when I praise a match that decidedly didn't go for less is more. But generally speaking, broadly speaking, less is more. Like, I know 3.5 hours is a weird time for a pay-per-view. Why not? Like 3 hours, especially now that they've increased in frequency. There's always one match. And I think I called this specific one, and I don't even think it was like a great insight. I just knew on the card, depending on where this is, it's the championship with the least importance attached to it, defended on the show. It's a match that no one can conceive of Brody King winning. And I just knew it was going to be one of the matches. There's always 1 or 2, sometimes 3, where this is the lull, where you're waiting for the next like big one. This was it. I like the work in it. Like, Okada's so weird. This was pretty short by the big Okada match, but he seemed to absorb the amount of damage you would take in a 30-minute match just from the chops alone. His chest looked disgusting. Brody King just looked like a killer throughout. But it was a good version of the usual Brody King template, and I don't know if that is... I think Brody King's great. Truly, I do. I don't know if I prefer him in a tag team environment, or I don't know if it's an agenting thing, or I don't know if it's like a match length thing. But can I say that drop kick into the cannonball was a great bit of like vintage Okada. Sorry, I know that's evoking memories of Michael Cole, but he was great in that spot. Brody King will take 90% of a match and then he just loses, having not accumulated much damage. And at this point, it's happened so often that I don't know if it's a him problem or if they just said, right, you've got 12 minutes, you're the monster. It never feels like he's been convincingly felled like the Giant, where there's not much, he came so close. And it's weird because he's the baby face in this dynamic as well. But no, I don't know if that's a pedantic take where I'm just sort of nitpicking, but there's never a great finish to a Brody King match. As much as I think he's exceptional and I think he's so fun to watch, you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's not a great finish to the Brody King match. It just
Weird
sort of
booking
ends.
in Hounds of Hell as well recently.
I never had much hopes that they would get anything huge. Maybe they will, and they're going to bide their time, but You likes bitching them out.
I don't know how I feel about Kazuchika Okada right now. Because, like you say, I can see where we're going, and I'm very excited for that. But like you say, this one, I was just like, and it's Brody King. We all love Brody King. But I was just like, well, there's no chance in hell that there's going to be a title change here. And they sort of wrestled a little bit like that in parts. But like you said, there's still big spots with Brody and stuff. But I never bought like, oh my God.
Yeah, no drama. No drama. There was some, it looked painful as hell.
Yes.
It was gripping in its own way, but it was not dramatic.
Intrigued to know your thoughts on what came next as well. It's the tag title match, Hurt Syndicate versus the Outrunners.
Oh, dear.
That's
my 2-word review.
This is your neither now nor summit, isn't it? We talked about this in the office before we came in here because we love the Outrunners, and we said this could have been a fun match. I've even said before, in my opinion, it should have been the Outrunners instead of Private Party, and then you have the heartbreaking, oh God, here comes the Hurt Syndicate, and they win the titles. I think maybe I got that one wrong, judging by this match, because, I don't know what story they were, well, I do know what story they were trying to tell here, but it was the wrong story.
We said on the preview there were two, that like the Outrunners are very, very limited in terms of their technical in-ring ability and, their appeal generally. Like, what a good touring indie act these lads would be if the Outrunners were to show, and I had more of a bloody social life. I'm going. They're a blast. They're not nationally. They're not to the standard of a national TV mainstream like major promotion. This match was so odd. Neither Nout nor Summit is correct. We said on the preview, there's two ways you can do this match, and really only two when you're working with a team as limited, as like endearing and as funny, but as limited as the Outrunners. You either do this huge video package on the Titantron, and I know AEW isn't huge on doing video packages. It's on to the next. Maybe they could anyway. I know they did something similar on Dynamite. Maybe they could have saved it, right? Where it's like they've trained. Like 80s Power Warrior workout montage. Always fade out in a montage. Right, montage stuff, yeah. Then, I said on the preview, right, green screen. Them like, we came so close at like 1984 Sportatorium in Dallas. The Omni. Yeah. All these like territory venues of yore, like the Mid-South Coliseum and all the rest of it. Like them going, we came so close here. And then it's like, no. The Crypto.com arena. Not the Mid-South Coliseum. It's not the Omni, it's not the Sportatorium. It's not MSG. It's the Crypto.com arena. That's what it was always meant to be for us. 3 minutes of like this like sort of really stirring, rousing. Oh my God, it's their night. It is their night. They come out, Outrunners, like 30 seconds death. Like the Hurt Syndicate just kill them. And what you've accomplished there is, well, that was funny. Mm-hmm. The Hurt Syndicate just look like monsters. And you've done like a good bit of like just total jet ink black comedy. And the Outrunners have just looked like total geeks. But guess what? That's kind of what they are. This is kind of the level they are. And this is absolutely not an insult or a criticism, because when it's good, it is so patter in the context of wrestling. They are a comedy act. Yeah. And they should have done this big, daft, like, black comedy gag for their big title challenge. It would have been, I think, really, really funny. I think the old AEW might have entertained that idea. Then again, there were so many elements of the old AEW on display, particularly during the Hollywood ending. Or, if you decide to be nice to the Outrunners and you want to tug at the heartstrings at the audience, you build a match where you lift a shoulder off the mat, you bully them, you pie-face them, Dominator, 1, 2, I want more fun. And then you get a small package in there or something, and you build to a small package spot where it's like, oh my God, not only do you get an electrifying pop, like the Outrunners almost beat them, and then that is the moment when the red mist descends from the Hurt Syndicate of, I cannot believe we almost got beat off them. Kill them now. Either do a near fall or a totally, like, black comedy squash this was vaguely competitive for a few minutes until it just ended. It was so, the structure of this
50-50
was
audience,
bizarre. It did nothing for either, and quite frankly, like, you know, we love them. They are so funny. It kind of screwed everything up in there.
Getting in the ring at one point. Yeah. No, I was very sad for them. But like you say, and I was just weirded out by the match in terms of, like you say, the story they should have told, if you're not doing the fun 30-second ones, is the Hurt Syndicate taking them far too lightly. Like you say, they batter them, but they're too confident. And at one point, someone gets knocked out of the ring. Suddenly, they've got a 2-on-1 advantage for whatever reason. They hit the Predator elbow, and you think, this is it. Oh, my God, this is it. And it's going to be like Shelton gets knocked into, because Shelton would be the one that would get pinned at these two, probably. Yeah. Shelton gets knocked into Bobby Lashley because he's just posing on the apron or whatever.
Because they're taking the piss with how dominant they are. Yeah.
But you had this weird moment where, like, mid-match, MVP was, like, firing them up. I didn't know what they were doing here. I should mention, by the way, because I forgot to mention her in the Swerve Ricochet thing. It was amazing. Leslie Jones has had a photo taken with the tag champs, the Hurt Syndicate, and the cuts to her when she was like, "Come on, Swerve, kick his ass," was great. It was really good to see that. But Hurt Syndicate now. Presumably they get back to the murder machines. I don't know.
I feel like the steam's gone off there. You know what I mean? I'm not like, I can't wait to see who they batter next. What a weird, 2 or 3 weeks the Hurt Syndicate have had.
Yeah, you'd have to have, the murder machines that really attack and beat them up to be like, you cost us that much.
I mean, the ultimate thing
is... quick turnaround for Dynasty, I suppose.
I think without, fantasy booking the next however many steps, this needs to be a priority now.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of wins at Revolution. If you're Tony Khan, do a project on this tag team division. Because it's not very good.
Right, we got the Hollywood ending next.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
We didn't know what a Hollywood ending match was going into this, but I think it's safe to say that's my favourite Hollywood ending match I've ever seen.
Yeah. No, this is absolutely incredible. An absolutely incredible, committed, instantly iconic match. Everything looked like it sucked to take. There's a spot after the Tai-Pi deathmatch sequence where Tony Storm, with an awesome crimson mask, is lying down, strewn glass just all over the place. And it looks like the Hellraiser thing. She looks like a skin is peeled off and she's being boiled alive. If she could have applied makeup and prosthetics to make herself look a bloody mess, and it wouldn't, and you could have got the best visual, VFX artist in Hollywood to do it, and practical as well, it would not have looked good as that shot. She looked a mess. It was pouring out of her. It was like, when you can get CM Punk he's an amazing bleeder, right? When he bleeds, his face is red. His face is red. I don't know how this happened with Tony Storm, but it was perfect where you could like the blood drip effect on like a t-shirt and stuff. It looked like that. You could still see the white of her skin, and then the blood almost in a cartoonish pattern going. It looked absolutely sensational. The physical commitment in this match was outrageous. It was not too dissimilar to the Willow Stat street fight, where there was zero downtime whatsoever. I was genuinely surprised by this. I thought that they would lean a lot into melodrama and dramatic pauses. Maybe they've sensed that element of the feud has been a bit divisive. This was so good that I've always thought, what an ambitious story, that when it hit, the initial turn, some of the promo exchanges, proper The Feeling AEW tier stuff, this program, when it doesn't, it really sort of, the artifice of it all can be a bit distracting. They don't seem like they're real people in there, and it can remove me from it. Maybe there's been an acceptance of, we want to end this on a high. We want to have people think this is an iconic story, and quite frankly, it has been. I'll remember this forever. It'll always be like a reference point. Best of AEW Women's Division. Oh, that program with them too.
Yeah.
Maybe they thought if we can get away from too much in the way of melodrama, there was a lovely touch at the end, and like downtime and acting and cinema, and get away from all of that. I don't know what the motivation was, but it was the completely correct choice. It felt like two feral women who despised each other, wanted to quite literally rip each other's flesh from their bones. This was like the tone of this, how credible it was, how much I believed the hatred, how vicious it was, absolutely sensational. Hot take of the podcast, they should not have main evented.
Okay. I saw a lot of people saying this.
They should not have main evented.
I'm inclined to agree with you.
I think, right,
yeah.
If they main event and they get more time, I think that the urgency... If this goes...
It went 13 minutes.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If this goes second for second, move for move, like incredible facial expression for incredible facial expression, and it's the last match on the card, brilliant. A completely refreshing, short main event. No downtime, no fat. Like perfection pretty much from start to finish. This match was wonderful. Yes, at main event. If it gets the main event slot, I think that's a different thing. I think it gets 25 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying that it would definitely have had, trite melodrama and these big swings for emotion and all the rest of it. But there's a chance it could have. I just think this is a perfect 13-minute, no notes. There's nothing bad about this match. Like so much, like there's iconic visuals out the ass, and like as much as there were loads of iconic visuals in it, and it was carefully arranged to hit this beat, this beat, this beat. It was, I don't know how else to describe it. It felt perfectly acted, and obviously there was some like actual action set pieces where they each go to the one side of the ring and get a bucket with glass. So it was heightened. It's not like Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe. There were bits of contrived theater in here. And yeah, it just worked so perfectly for these characters who are playing actresses, you know?
Yeah.
They are wrestlers playing actresses. Of course, they're going to do something that almost feels scripted, and yet it totally works in the context of this program. Am I making any sense at all?
Absolutely. I thought it was the perfect runtime and the perfect positioning for this match, because you're exactly spot on there. We don't know what the card would have looked like had this main evented. One would assume, obviously, it wouldn't have immediately followed
You
Ospreay
might have had
and Fletcher.
people say, it's too short. They finally do a women's main event and they're only given 30 minutes. Wrestling broadly needs to move on from only X amount of time, but that's what would have happened.
What you do with it.
Guaranteed, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, they would have moved it around, as I said, so they wouldn't have had Ospreay, Fletcher, and then immediately this for obvious reasons.
It's just so urgent, this.
Yeah, but I do think, you wouldn't have pushed Ospreay, Fletcher that far back. Maybe you'd have switched the steel cage match with the international championship match just to separate the blood a little bit more. But even then, you'd have only had, a 30-minute match in between that. So I think you're right. I think they'd have gone 20 plus minutes, and you'd have got this 13 minutes, but probably after about 5 to 10 minutes of melodrama. I think you're right. I think that's exactly what they've gone, right, well, we're going to slow it down initially, do a bit of melodrama, or do the flashpoint right at the beginning, send Luther off over the table.
That was awesome as well.
As soon as that happened, you're like, there's room to it here.
I love it when you get, the first minute is, all right, this is going to be awesome then.
It was a bit, I thought, this match isn't going to hit the ring. They're going to just fight up there or fight around there or whatever. And I would have been totally fine with it, to be honest. It obviously ended up back up there as well. But yeah, I think that they would have gone into the ring and done, melodrama is the best word for it. And then you would have gone, that last 10-minute stretch was great. No, I agree. I think I would rather have had a different main event to this show, but
I think it's so much better for what it was than what it. Yeah. Oh, this is awesome, this.
Yeah. The shoe spot, obviously, just to mention the finish for you, the shoe spot followed by a Storm Zero through the Hollywood table.
Yeah.
I'm very excited. We'll talk about this on Wednesday, obviously, but I'm very excited to see what happens next for both of these women, but in particular, Toni Storm.
That's the thing. They can almost get away with, not booking Mariah May as much and intentionally putting her in this slot where she can be like, the Anna Jay cycle, or recently the Penelope Ford. There's always one of the wrestlers who are in this rotating cast who will do the jobs for a few weeks at a time. What if it's Mariah May? And then they can deliberately mention, she's not really winning as much as she used to. Is she fading into irrelevance?
Yeah.
There's loads that can do with this.
Do
It's AEW's women's division. I don't think they will, sadly, but there's so much
I hope they put some
potential.
thought into that, because like you say, well, again, we'll talk about this more on Wednesday when Hamflet's here, but you could lean into A, what Toni Storm has said, and B, how many times have you read in newspapers about like this movie starlet whose career's spiraling out of control or whatever? I know that's the Toni Storm character, but by association is Mariah May, so you could really do something with that.
Absolutely. I want to say as well, on the screens, when it was the end, they literally did a credits.
Yeah.
That was just lush, man.
Because I saw people, I saw someone, I remember someone saying that, I meant to mention on our review on Thursday, that when they did the big promo and this gozzing in the face and all that, someone said, the only way this would have been better if it had like a Finn appears on the screen. And no, this was the place to do it.
Because it was the ending. Just wonderful stuff. This is like, I'll use the word AEW and flair. And like, only in AEW can they do certain little touches and bits of flair and detail. I think that's the company. That for me is the feeling. And that when I saw the end and it all just underscored how much work has gone into it literally by doing the credits. That's the feeling. Just that little bit of detail, that little bit of flair to the booking.
Well, Michael Sidgwick, how were you feeling watching the International Championship match between Konosuke Takeshita and your boy, Kenny Omega?
I thought this was magnificent.
Sick at one point?
Yeah, no, nauseous, genuinely. Like, long-time listeners will know, I have a very one-sided parasocial relationship with Kenny Omega, where he's just my favorite wrestler.
Yeah.
He just is. To the point where, like, if he's a bit rubbish, or, if he does something where I think, it wasn't, I'll still point it out, but I am more emotionally invested in Kenny Omega than perhaps any other wrestler. For me, he's redefined what a great pro wrestling match looks like. He's raised the standard. Watching someone as awesome as Will Ospreay chase it is thrilling. I think indirectly, Kenny Omega is such an unbelievable force of good for the form. But this is a new Kenny Omega now, and it's weird. How did this guy have this match in the Gabe Kidd match in the same year, in the same quarter year? A level beyond.
You'll give me about questioning it all now after the Brian Cage.
Well, we'll get to that.
Okay.
He was playing, yes, he played up the diverticulitis against Gabe Kidd, but he was playing the bully heel who was like trying to get, who is this Gabe Kidd? Has he got anything to him at all? Like, no, I don't think so. And he's playing this match and he's just being a prick and he's trying to bring him up to his level and he's playing this aloof final boss. Sorry, but that's Kenny Omega in New Japan. Like, this aloof dickhead who holds people to the highest standard, and he will belittle them and make them feel horrible for daring to step to him. He did it with Ospreay in 2023. Great character work. Here, Kenny Omega plays this inordinately sympathetic babyface who you just want to ask if he's okay.
Pity.
Like, pity, sympathy, and it might be the Kenny Omega that I never knew I wanted this version, right? So basically, the story of the 28-minute match is that Konosuke Takeshita is a massive heavy hitter. He's, as Don Callis puts it, his intestines are going to explode at any minute. And that's not really how it works, I don't think, but maybe it will. I don't know. It adds layers to the drama.
Something landing on the edge of a table is good for it.
No, you know what I mean? And Takeshita's just got that forearm in the elbow, and Kenny's just selling and selling and selling and selling and selling. Like, when I say this could be the version of Kenny, so that 28 minutes of pretty deliberately paced, like a lot of selling. There's so much space between the moves. But as any artist or any pro wrestler should do, maximizing the space between the moves to sell and do it convincingly and make people feel like, Jesus Christ, are you the same Kenny? Like, you're just 39 years old. I was probably about 7, 8 when I was told how it's all fit. 3 decades into knowing what the deal is here.
Well, they announced it in that interview with the Queen of the Ring.
Yeah, exactly, as well. So thanks for that.
Just in case you're unaware, we know what happens before the match happens.
3 decades into knowing, and, you know, I'm quite a cynical dude at the best of times, as you'll know. And I'm like, oh, come on, Kenny, get back into the match, get into the match. And it's not just his selling, the physical expression of pain. It's the order in which he does things, or rather the order in which he doesn't do things or get to complete things. Like, as an example, you're like, these like little tiny little hope spots, but not in the same like strict definition. Spots where you feel a bit of hope that the old Kenny can come back, and then, oh, nice. His intestines are going to explode. So he does You Cannot Escape, and I'm always looking for... I always think that move, it looks like it sucks. If I was him, I would have dropped it, but I'm not Kenny Omega, evidently. So he does You Cannot Escape. I'm like, look at the spring. Look at the spring. He can still move. He can still move. He can still move. Look at that spring. Oh, look at the vertical leap to get under there. He's still Kenny. He's still Kenny. Boom! He just gets smashed 2 feet into the air. Guts go against a barricade. He's selling it like he needs to go to emergency surgery. And another layer of this, the law of the diverticulitis, is that he just carried the pain with him until it was unbearable. Like, he had it for like a week, and he knew he was like pretty damn ill. But he's like, no, I'm sure it'll pass, or I don't know what this is, and like just didn't want to go to the hospital for whatever reason. But he wanted to go to work and all the rest of it. So, you know, like, if he actually has like a flare up or something, the danger is what happened last time. He was like, hours from potentially dying. I mean, it's a terrible way to like go on, but if nothing else, Kenny, you've informed the drama of your matches thereafter. So that spot where it's like, it was just about like spring. I saw the spring of the old Kenny Omega. Just those little glimpses that he allowed you of, there's the old Kenny, there's the old Kenny, there's the old... no, it's been dashed again. And that use of the table was unbelievable. If you haven't seen the match, Konosuke Takeshita gets the table out. They do the thing where, it doesn't happen yet, so that when it does happen, it wouldn't really register as a disqualification. It would look like no one's deliberately used a weapon. It was just there. So Kenny gets a suplex, like a gutbuster sort of like onto the table.
On the underneath bit,
and then it somehow flips over. Then you get another sort of like gutbuster onto it. So he's like, guts are to split. It's like, it's... When he was selling it so convincingly, like you can feel the pain in your own gut as it happens. There's like that German overhead release as well. What a spot that was, because Takeshita, as you know, he wrote his thesis on the German suplex. So you're expecting to see, once he's wrapped his arms around someone's waist, which, by the way, that can't feel nice if you're getting Omega in this match or this character, you know. You have to like remind yourself, this character, he's selling, he's doing a performance, it's a work. And then Takeshita gets him for the German, but then he releases it, and he does the backflip, just lands on his guts. It's like, geez, his intestines are going to explode. Will you please just be nice to Kenny? That spot with the upturned table, I was like, oh, God. And then what happens, right? And yes, I know they're 2 different matches, 2 different aims. This is meant to be a long, sort of grueling, harrowing match for Kenny. But the difference of this and when Brody King loses a TV match, despite getting killed, and his guts getting killed, Kenny Omega hits back hard enough and long enough for Takeshita for the pinfall to actually register. Actually, I can buy the finish. There's a spot when Kenny's selling so well, and he is selling. I know what this is. He is selling. And I'm thinking, he does that springboard powerbomb, and he's going to do it. I'm thinking he's going to just fall off the ropes here and make a tit of himself, because he just looks like he can't do it. He's too winded, or whatever happens down there when he had the injury he had. And he does it, and it's great. And I think that just clicked in my head of like, I want the babyface to complete the move and make the comeback. Like, these are feelings you have when you're a child, bro. You have feelings. I have feelings every day, man. Yep. Sorry, one more thing on this match. When I say this is the Kenny Omega that I didn't know that I wanted, I didn't want a slower version who can pick his spots. Oh my God, the V-triggers in this match were incredible as well.
Yeah, take it all back.
Take it all. He put so much like oomph behind them. And he needed to as well, because he can't just beat Takeshita with a roll-up. You have to weaken him and make it look like it's been weak. but he's just picking his spots now. I reckon Kenny Omega could do a 10-minute sprint.
Yeah.
He just doesn't want to. He's telling a better story given what has happened to him. It wouldn't be a sprint the level of what he used to be able to go at, but he could still do it. He's very clearly, now that he can relax and not be scared on his behalf, he's doing this as an artistic choice, and what an unbelievable artistic choice it is. He's making it feel real again. But sorry, just to wind it back to that point again, sorry. When I say it's the Kenny Omega that I didn't know I needed, one of the critiques people can reasonably have of Kenny Omega, other than, the lack of ambition. I'm sorry, I will get your thoughts in a second.
No.
It's Kenny time, baby, so I'm going to talk. The lack of ambition to just tell Tony Khan, all right, well, I'll just be Jon Moxley as well. I'll be the hardest and win all the time. Do you want to do that for me? The fact that he never seems to want to do that.
Yeah.
That is a critique of his. Sometimes his in-ring promos can be a bit overly theatrical.
Yeah.
Histrionic. To the point where he's much better on pre-tape, I think, on the mic, Kenny Omega. There's also this idea that you can be a little bit cold. Like, I remember when he was feuding with Don Callis in 2023. Obviously, he missed all of 2024. When he was feuding with Don Callis in 2023, he didn't march to the ring with a microphone and explain in 2 succinct minutes, I hate you, what you've done to us, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to swear bloody revenge at the pay-per-view on this date, blah, blah, blah. It's just not what he does. There's that coldness that you could say that Omega has. It's that he's defrosting and he's become this like really human, authentic performer in the weirdest way possible with the diverticulitis. But the emotional struggle of this, like the fans, considering what they'd just seen, the fact that it's an AEW pay-per-view, the fact as well that there's an expectation of Kenny of like, oh, fireworks. He didn't give you any of that. He gave you an engrossing, slow burn, emotional performance where he picked his spots really carefully and sold. I can't remember a wrestler selling that well in years and years and years and years. And because he's a genius at this, the people loved it. And this match got a really great reaction when it needed to get the reaction. This new version of Kenny Omega could really be something.
I don't think there's a better wrestler in the world at convincing me, not just in the match, but in general, that they're finished.
Yeah.
Like, because we had the one you always talk about where he came back and you were like, why is he so pale? Why is he wearing all that tape? And
why has he got the compression suit on and stuff?
Yeah. And then they were like, oh, no, he's just a genius.
Yeah.
And
just waiting to get the spray tan out.
Yeah, and then even before he came back, when he was like on the road to coming back, and it was like, okay, he's going to go work New Japan first, all right. And then he's like back in AEW, and he's like, well, I don't know if I'm still the man I am. Don't say that.
Yeah.
And then you have this match, and you're like, oh no. And then there's the only thing I really want to add, because I think you've nailed it all, was the bit just before the finish, obviously, where they're trading One-Winged Angels, and the story that they factored in. Kenny Omega said as much as like, maybe if you beat me, that's kind of it. You beat me 3 times, and you've won, you've retained this title, and maybe, I'm not the man I used to be. So when it was going to be physically embodied by Takeshita, not just taking over from Kenny in that regard, but taking his finish.
That's a great take there.
I was like, you can't do that. No, you can't do it like that.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm invested in it.
That's
And then he makes history, isn't he? He's the first grand, if you want to call it a grand slam,
Yeah.
TNT Trios Tag World.
He has one of the TNT.
No, sorry. Trios Tag World and International.
Absolutely. Love that take on the One-Winged Angel as well. Just elevating the finisher trade-off that just happens because, it's a big match and it's part of that. What does a big wrestling match look like? A long, big wrestling match. Checklist. We can do each other's finishes. Sometimes there's just no context behind it whatsoever. There is. Well, that's class for pointing that out. And I also loved as well, did they take an extra second on that snap, on that Poison Rana for like, they messed it up at Grand Slam to think, no, I can do it. I can do it this time, because I just think it was a really effective pause just before that, like to register that moment. Yeah, no, like I love this version of Kenny Omega.
How do you follow that? Oh yeah, Will Ospreay and Carl Fletcher in a steel cage.
Like Nicholas,
yes,
was marveling at the production choices when they each ascended the cage went to the top and stared at each other. Like a great bit of foreshadowing and a great way of like inducing dread, because you know they're going to climb up there again at a certain point of this match, and it's how they get there, it's how much they do to each other that's already making you scared before they eventually do something like inevitably just deranged, demented off the top. So that was just a great bit of tone setting of like, oh, they're going to go up there eventually, and it's going to be horrible when it happens. The thing about this, right, is that if I was being incredibly pedantic, flawed is too harsh, imperfect. There were a few moments where I'm thinking, have they lost the thread of this, or is this becoming a bit the tropes I associate with a cage match, or like a modern cage match that I'm not a big fan of, like the door can never remain shut, you know? Maybe I'm romanticizing a time that just will not ever exist anymore, but I always think, oh, come on, try it. But then the Mark Davis stuff leads to that unbelievable counter from their tag finish into the Poison Rana, into the Hidden Blade elbow chair. That reminded me of Swerve Strickland, in that being a badass with weapons and you'd like doing like combos against multiple enemies. It's like you are the coolest video game character.
Yes.
I thought that was such an awesome sequence that did in the end justify opening the cage door and doing interference, which ordinarily is excessive, but as a platform for Ospreay to do something that cool, just really made him look like a total badass.
That's really funny that in a 2-man steel cage match, 3 people bled.
I was talking earlier about like various sounds that you heard, like, you know, during the Hollywood ending, like the table, like you could hear that table going to Omega's guts. There were some spots at the cage where usually it's like this rattle. You can hear the rattle. Here, it felt like a thud when they were going against the cage wall, because these guys just hit each other so goddamn hard. And even away from the cage, it's hardly one of the spots that you'll remember months from now when you recall this match, how violent it was, how unhinged it was, how terrifying it was. There's a Liger bomb that Fletcher hits Ospreay with, and it just sounds like a gun. It sounds disgusting. Yeah. These guys, without any weapons, hit each other so hard, and like they can scorpion the necks so horrifically with those DDTs.
Yeah.
That they don't necessarily need plunder. This is awesome. As I said, I thought they were going to lose the thread with the Mark Davis stuff, and then the weapons get introduced. You know what this was, right? This is like, there are people who adore this program who are not going to enjoy this take at all. This was the Swerve Hangman cage match, but better. Right. Because I think the cage match last year between Swerve and Hangman couldn't hold a candle to their Texas death. And it felt like this really unsettling experience with some horrific moments, like inked into your psyche. As painful as that sounds, it wasn't a great action-heavy match. This is both. This had such great action, that brilliant set piece with Ospreay, like various other moments, but it had that tone, that escalating tone of stop, I'm scared, don't do this to each other, don't do this to each other, don't do this to each other.
Fletcher was licking blood off the cage in about the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, I thought this worked on 2 very, very challenging levels of this grotesque match that feels unnecessary, but in the right way, if that makes any sense. Of these 2 blokes are wanting to do this to each other, even if it's not ill-advised. Well, it's a cage match in a wrestling show. This is what happens, sort of thing, you know? And as this really awesome action match that didn't compromise great, exhilarating action set pieces just to give you this really miserable, on purpose, scary experience. I thought they nailed both things. I want to put over, finally, before we move on, do you see Fletcher's arms when he took the Styles Clash dick first onto the thumbtacks?
Yep.
The flailing panic in his arms was absolutely incredible, absolutely unbelievable. And as well, I'm sorry, do I like to put myself over?
No.
Yeah. Said on the preview It's completely out of date, this, the preview, but you can listen to it if you want for proof. I knew Ospreay was going to do something like an awesome Spider-Man spot. Like when he just clung to the very top of the cage, just below the actual, what would you call it, the bars at the top, and then just did the Oscar back. But only did the so he's just below that, latches on, seamlessly does the Oscar. Do you know how difficult that must be? I don't think he's worked a traditional cage match ever. He's done like a big bars one in like a fence deal in New Japan. So his first ever time in a cage, he can learn how to grab onto it, thingy off it, bounce off it, and hit a picture-perfect Oz cutter, where, by the way, you can't see your target like properly because you have to move your neck. It's just, this guy is absolutely unbelievable. I've got one, other than the Mark Davis stuff where I thought it's becoming a bit of a cage match. Oh, they hit each other with Spanish Fly off the top of the...
Yeah, just to mention that.
Ospreay hit the Spanish Fly off the top of the cage as well.
And the commentary team didn't scream or shout. They just sort of were silently saying, as I mentioned on the news, please don't die.
Yeah. Like there was a moment when they were fighting on the top and they were doing headbutts where the crowd, you could feel the terror. You could feel the terror. Terror was thick, palpable in the air. Great stuff. One minor flaw for a match where I thought it worked on two unbelievable levels. A bit too much chat in the finish. And Kyle Fletcher said the exact same thing to Ospreay as Mariah May said to Toni Storm. Because she at one point was like, I hate you. And like, I believed her more than Fletcher saying that. And it's an age-old problem with AEW where certain bits get inadvertently rehashed on the same show, certain finishes, belt shots, what have you. More communication is needed still in that company, no matter how tentatively brilliant this turnaround in form is.
Will Ospreay getting the win, though? Like I said, across this card, you're looking like, right, Swerve's number one contender. Hangman Page has won. Ospreay's won. Really promising signs.
Yeah.
MJF's going to want to recover from this, obviously, as well. Then we get to the main event of the evening.
Yeah.
It was Mox versus Cope, I suppose technically, eventually, versus Christian Cage, because just to tie it all off nicely, Christian Cage used that Casino Gauntlet cash-in during the match to make it a triple threat. Didn't work, he failed. And as Andy and I said, maybe that's the end of their whatever Money in the Bank is in AEW. That's probably for the best, but I'll get your thoughts on that in a second. Obviously, crowd loving Cope, sing along to his theme.
I love Altered Bridge.
Well, yes. But a change of... not that you should have continued what you've just got in the last three matches. A change of pace, but not the one I was... No, I was expecting this. Not the one I was enjoying. Because like you say, it was hard to follow those three, to be fair.
Here's the thing, right? Maybe it'll come out that they thought, how can you follow that? How can you follow this, and this? Kenny Omega wrestled a match with minimal content. If you did like the math, calc, and trig, and you worked it all out, you thought, what's the ratio of minutes spent selling to minutes spent doing moves?
Yeah.
Or like what really dangerous stuff did they do in that match that you could consider like a shortcut or like, I don't know, like hollow, grabby cheating, you know? Like Kenny Omega, through his incredible selling, the fact that people adore him, his ability to lay out a match, to hit dramatic peaks at the perfect times, to make people think he was done for, has done a pretty minimalist match by his standards and got this awesome reaction and loads of acclaim. I mean, if you're good enough, you should be able to follow anything. If you are good enough, you should be able to follow anything. And it's as if they had no shortcuts. They had loads of activity at the end, had a Money in the Bank cash in. They ripped up the entrance mats and did some like work on the concrete stuff, you know.
Jay White getting involved.
Absolutely. They had loads of add-ons, like the cast of characters expanded as it went on, and people didn't give a toss because no one cares about the storyline and the actual content and the selling and whatever. Everything in this match is just totally dull. plodding, dull, wildly overambitious. Is it the law? Is there a rule where it has to go 25 minutes or above? Could have done a proper brawl. A proper brawl, 12, 14 minutes. Maybe AEW pay-per-views need a short main event at some point. I don't know, man. But this was just, what did they think was going to happen? Like, a bit of humility wouldn't go amiss among certain wrestlers.
Yeah.
I know the whole point is they are meant to each think they're the best, and that's what drives them, and that's the athlete mentality. But maybe just a bit of interest, because it's such a thin line between having that mentality and being borderline completely deluded into thinking people care about your stuff. And my God, this is just delusional to me. Delusional, boring, like it kind of botches well in a spot like this. That Death Rider looked abysmal, and yeah, it's one spot. And yeah, they don't really botch very often. But not when you're in this spot, when you've got everyone saying you shouldn't be in the spot, you've got to nail everything. This was unacceptably, dismally boring. I just couldn't get engaged into the story they were telling at all.
Baffling choices in this, not just the length of the match that they had, like you say. And I get it to a certain extent.
Just did control for ages.
Yeah, them going like, we've got to slow it down because they'll burnt themselves out on Fletcher and Ospreay and Omega and, So let's build back up to that. Let's give them a bit of a breather or whatever. I get that, but I was just like, get to it. And then like the bit where it was like, oh my God, here comes Wheeler Yuta.
The philosophy's right, but the execution isn't. It went too long on the heat spot.
Yeah. But the bit where it was like, oh, here comes Wheeler Yuta, but whose side is he on? And by that for a second, I was like, he's going to hit Cope. Yeah, he's hit Cope. Like, I wasn't like, oh. Like Rob Van Dam going up top when he's like, who's he going to splash?
Yeah.
What are we doing? Come on.
Just really, really bad. Get to the finish and I'll say more things bad.
Yeah, Jay White comes in to counter Wheeler Yuta and then clobbers Cope accidentally with the briefcase. But in the end, who should appear but Christian Cage, as it looks like Cope's got the match won, basically. And he signs the deal, adds himself to the match. Gets a fun near fall in there.
It would have been very WWE had they done it. It's a sort of thing Shawn Michaels would book. Actually do that finish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Sorry, mate.
No, it's fair. But in the end, Mox is the hardest, so he chokes out Christian.
He's been in the match like 1 minute and he's still Moxley's bitch. I think this is just a case of whatever plan they had in and around Wembley. I'm sure they were going to do Christian Cage versus Danielson in like a terrifying, like well-crafted 5-minute match.
I think your booking was the best thing that they could have done with that
and
contract.
Like maybe Luchasaurus's injury got in the way.
Yeah.
I thought, because if you remember, cast your mind back to All In. Obviously, Danielson wins the belt. In the same show, Christian Cage wins that contract. Luchasaurus hasn't come down with this horrific health issue, and he's still in our thoughts. Obviously, I thought they were going to do this match where Danielson at Grand Slam or whenever would win a pretty grueling match, Christian Cage would cash in. It would go 5 minutes. You know what they're like, Christian Cage and Danielson. They had a match on Collision once. That was awesome. So well crafted. I thought they're going to get like a million brilliant near falls here. And then Luchasaurus would finally go, you know what? It shouldn't happen this way. Christian, you're a prick. I finally learned this, but whatever. So I think this is a way to go, right?
I think it was going to be the show, where Danielson fought Jungle Boy. That would be a nice sort of...
that would have been nice.
Yeah.
Either way, doesn't happen. So I think it's just a way of like, like Christian Cage has never been booked as someone who could be taken seriously as a world champion, even under these circumstances. Like, he's barely over as a heel that much. He's past his peak. I think it's just a way to get rid of that contract, this sort of albatross hanging over an already pretty aged main event scene.
Use the exact term on the news, the albatross line.
Albatross, yeah. Great
minds.
Let's hope so. One more thing about Cope. Never again in the slot. The ceiling, Cope's ceiling in AEW is, wasn't that nice? That was a fun match with Christian Cage. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
They had the hockey fight and it was a good bit of business. That was a respectable bit of business. That was good stuff. Or, that was better than I expected. A well-crafted match against Big Bill. He's not this superstar. He's not this beloved legend like Sting or this incredible wrestler who can really get you emotionally like Kenny Omega. I mean, he's obviously not like this all-rounder in terms of endearing promos, super match of the year contenders all the time like Will Ospreay. What's Cope's value? This comeback. I said this on Twitter, X. The mega fans will hopefully forgive me. They come back better in Pet Cemetery than Cope has. Than Cope did in 2020. Legacy's kind of tarnished now. He just needs to stop thinking he's Jack Reacher. He needs to do patter tag teams with Christian just to put a nice little circular bow on that career. Never again in a spot like this because it simply hasn't worked. It's eaten loads of time in AEW's otherwise pretty stellar or very promising 2025. And the lesson of Revolution: sometimes dead is better. Have you seen Pet Cemetery?
Yes. I also was going to mention the show went off.
Sometimes dead is better. You don't want to go down that road. Don't want to go down that road.
Do you want to mention the show went off the air with a swerve stomp off the audience, basically, to Mox?
Oh, yeah.
That was what I was going to ask you before we wrap up here. This casino
Swerve
gauntlet.
Strickland beats Wheeler Yuta. Do you think you can beat Moxley?
I mean, yeah. For me and Andy said this, I'm no doubt you'll agree, and we'll talk more about this later on in the week. Stop waiting around for Derby if that's what we're doing. Put it on Swerve right now. Let's go. Yeah. Put it on Swerve, and you can have Swerve Hangman or whatever. Texas or...
You do Mox Derby as a grudge match. I mean, they threw him down the stairs and injured him.
Yeah.
Do that as a grudge match. That's the thing in AEW. With that, there's so much you can do. There's so much you can do, and there's so much you should do instead.
But yeah, this casino gauntlet cash-in contract thing. No more after this? Yeah?
Nah, just do it for straight title shots.
Yeah, that's what
I mean. Yeah, that's what they've done before. Like
That's
Ospreay
exactly what
did
we
it.
said,
Yeah, just do it for a title shot.
But all in all, main event aside, what a show this was.
Unbelievable. A masterpiece factory where it's another night where AEW reminds you that they are capable of delivering nothing short of the greatest pro wrestling you'll ever see.
And less than a month to go till Dynasty, April 6th.
Mox Swerve is instantly a better main event than Revolution, so this could be even better if they get the rest of the card right.
Especially because they've got
we'll say they'll get
4 weeks.
They'll get some heat in that result if Mox wins. I don't want him to, but maybe that's what they're thinking.
I was literally sitting here thinking, what if he beats him though?
Yeah, if he beats, that could be the whole idea of, well, people don't really like Cope that much. What if we beat someone that they love? Try and get a little bit of juice. Otherwise, it's a total failure. I mean, I'd cut bait if I'm Tony Khan.
More like the Kiss My Ass Center if they do that result, huh? Anyway, let us know your thoughts on AEW Revolution in the comments or on X at WhatCulture WWE. You can follow all three of us. You can follow Michael Sidgwick at...
Sidgwick.
All going so well. You can follow our brilliant producer, Adam Nicholas, at...
It's Adam Nicholas.
And you can follow me at Adam Wilbourn. Follow us all at WhatCulture WWE, as I said. Make sure you subscribe to WhatCulture Wrestling, wherever you get your podcasts from, for daily wrestling podcasts. Me and Sidgwick, and hey, maybe Hamlet will bother showing up. We'll be back. We'll be back later on this week to deal with all the fallout from Revolution on Dynamite, and our Raw preview and SmackDown reviews are available right now wherever you get your podcasts from. But for now, this has been the AEW Revolution review. My thanks to Michael Sidgwick. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you soon.
Sometimes dead is better.